This is Jack Stanley, and I wanted to talk about New York City, Abraham Lincoln, and the American Civil War, which all go together, although we don't think of it sometimes. Now, I have got a little bit of a bug, and so I've been sitting here thinking and reading and contemplating, and so I figured in amongst my contemplations I would sit and babble at you a little. And I wanted to talk about this because it's a fascinating topic that doesn't get talked about much, because New York City, although we don't realize it, was a very pro-South city. The connections between the South and New York City were very strong. And when the American Civil War started, the mayor of New York City at that time, Fernando Wood, wrote up papers of secession to join the South because they did not like what the North was doing. And you have to remember that what was New York City in those days? There was lots of industry here. There were a lot of textile mills. And of course the cotton came from the South to New York, New Jersey, and Connecticut. Abraham Lincoln was not liked in New York City. He didn't win the vote in the city in 1860. He didn't win the vote in 1864 either. In fact, they had little Mack parades here in New York City for McClellan. Also on the East Rivers, where many of the ships carrying slaves illegally would be transferred to other ships and brought to the South, even though selling and transporting slaves to the United States was no longer legal. There was a strong illegal market that was thriving on the East River. And the Civil War, of course, has a profound effect upon New York City. Lincoln only comes to New York City as president once. And when he did come, he came to City Hall, and on top of City Hall was the American flag. And above the American flag was the flag of New York City. And what that told Lincoln was that he was not liked, he was not wanted, and that he should leave. And he would. He wouldn't spend much time in New York. Now, of course, early on, he was in New York City when he spoke at Cooper Union in 1860. Had his photograph taken by Matthew Brady. On Broadway, the famous Cooper Union photograph where he pulled his collar up a little bit. Of course, Lincoln didn't have a beard at that time. Lincoln didn't look too well either because he had these wrinkled clothes and stuff like that. He had carried in a carpet bag. But when we think of the American Civil War, we don't think of New York City being very pro-South. Because we have to remember, New York City and New Jersey were not exactly so prevalent in favoring the North. You know, New Jersey has always been known as a northern southern state. And that's where McClellan was. In fact, McClellan would eventually become governor of New Jersey. And of course, New Jersey would have slaves until 1865. New York City got rid of slavery, but it never stopped being sympathetic to much dealing with slavery until the end of the Civil War. Something to ponder, something to think of. And of course, remember, Fernando Wood wrote up papers of secession. Never hear about that, but it is a very poignant point. And of course the board of New York City said, location. Perhaps if they were a little further south, they might have gone for it. But New York City would stay with the North, and New York City would suffer with many things dealing with the American Civil War, including the draft riots of 1863, which were terrible. The worst riots in the history of the United States. So, a little bit of New York history that we don't talk about too much, that I thought I would share with you as I go through my miserable affliction here and getting over it. Thank you.